So Hubs, what's going on today? What's the plan?
Well, today we're gonna bring this up to the motor guy, Boyd's, and have him go through it, rebuild it, make it good as new.
What is it?
This is, what do they call it, a Go Devil engine. I think it's like a L134, I think. A little 4-cylinder out of a 46 Jeep Willys CJ2A. We got a guy that brought it down here. He wants like a full restoration on this Jeep. He had it as a child or something, I guess. Learned how to drive on it, so it's got a lot of sentimental value, and he wants it good as new.
You're talking about every single part, not just the spark plugs and wires, right?
No, everything. Absolutely. Yeah, 100% everything. I got him a huge parts list. We got a brand new tub for it. The body was completely shot. Every single part on this thing is gonna can get replaced is gonna get replaced. Everything that can get fixed is gonna get fixed. And I guess we gotta start with the motor. She's right locked up.
Uh-huh. And what about transmission? What are you doing with that?
Transmission's gonna go to a transmission shop. Training certification, gonna have them go through that. I want everything that's going back in this thing to be basically brand new, no issues. I don't need him to have anything to worry about.
And what's the time frame we're talking about? Week? 2?
No. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure how long the motor guy's gonna take, but I know we gotta have it done by May. So we got about 4 months left.
Woo!
Should be plenty of time.
That's getting tight. Yeah. So we're gonna start on the engine, transmission, transfer case, and move forward with that, huh?
Pretty much. We've got quite a few parts here already. We've got it stripped down to just the frame and the axles now. We've got a sandblaster coming in a couple weeks, and we're gonna get the axles out, sandblast the entire frame, sandblast the axle housings and whatnot, rebuild the axles, and we'll start from there.
Awesome. What are we expecting? 1,000 horse? 1250?
100% original. I want to say it makes like 60, 80 something horse.
60? This is a T1 model speed, huh?
Yeah, no, it's a little guy, but it's what he wants. All original.
Well, that's good. That definitely brings a value to a vehicle such as that one. What about the other motor? What are we doing with that today?
That one only makes 85 horsepower, so we were going to upgrade. This one's going up to the motor shop too. We're dropping them both off. This one's going to just get gone through. This is the one I got from Joe. I did some studying, and apparently these are the pistons that Joe has in this motor right here. And this is what I have in my other one. So I want to put these pistons in this motor. So it's just a little bit bigger.
A little bit.
This one's probably like 0.05 to 1 compression. You know what I mean? Something, half inch bore. This one here is about a 4.65 bore, or stroke, I'm sorry, and big bore. But the one thing I wanted to touch on real quick before I drop it off is some guys that had some questions last night about the alcohol setup. And I want to just touch on this before I drop this thing off. So I did a video before about it, but it was kind of a shitty video. You really couldn't hear it and stuff. So I'm not going to get into all of it. But this is obviously a 632 big block Chevy. We're assuming this is why it's going on the dyno. Well, we know it makes 1,100 horsepower. It probably makes a little bit more than that. But Ron's Terminator injection. I just want to kind of go over some things because where's that piece of head? So when a lot of guys are running this Ron's Terminator injection thing, this is what you get when you buy it. So you get this, you get your barrel valve. I upgraded to the stainless steel lines because I run my truck quite a bit, and what was happening was it was eating the inside of the rubber lines. So I just swapped all this stuff out. So anyway, when you get your kit, this is what you get from Ron's. Let me zoom into you. You get this right here. This is the nozzle that screws into the intake. Then you get this foam breather right here, and then you get just a little bronze cap that goes on top there. And then there's a jet, and then your fuel line screws onto this. The way this works is like this. There's 3 air bleeds, okay? See that? Mm-hmm. So what happens is this basically works like a siphon system. So this is mechanical fuel injection. It's not EFI. So it's crank driven. As it's fed more, it takes more. So all of this stuff derived from drag cars, okay? So when you have a drag car, the only thing that could possibly get stuck in there might be like a gnat, one of them little black flying bugs, right? And that's it's gonna get sucked right in. What happens with these is right here is where they reside on the motor. They're right here, okay? So that thing just sets like that. Now what happens is these things get pounded with mud if you don't close in the motor compartment. What it basically does, mud, water, dirt will end up finding its way into that little filter, possibly closing off one of the holes, and then you kind of lose a cylinder, right? So not so good with the mud. So I've had quite a few issues with these motors over the last couple of years, over fueling, too lean, too rich, all this other crap. I ended up getting hooked up with a guy at Ron's, and we got a really good kit that they've kind of worked with because nobody ever calls them back. They always want to talk shit because their stuff doesn't work, but nobody wants to fix it. So what we found is this. So the new injectors, the new nozzles, you can, I'll just take this piece of tape off. The new nozzles are just like this. So they're almost the same except there's no air bleeds anymore. Now you've got a what the hell is that called? Hose bar end here. So then what happens is, this is your breather now. So before it was these 3 holes on here. Okay, we'll do this. Before it was the 3 holes on there. Now those are eliminated. Now your injector breathes through here. So your line goes to here, boom, you're done. That's it. It literally screws on, done. Goes to this. This is called a manifold. All I did was I welded a 1/4-inch bolt to the top of my thermostat nut, right? Screwed it on, then this screws on, okay? From here, all 8 of these, it comes with a roll. You cut this to fit. It's not real crazy critical. And then from here, 3/8 line runs into the cab. That's your vent. It's waterproof, it's mud-proof, it's almost bomb-proof. This stuff is, you can literally submerge this thing now, and you don't have to worry about it taking on water and any other crap, which is really good because what we do is it's just not even remotely close to drag car stuff. You know, some of the other things. So basically when you call Ron's, if you want this setup, whether you're running a toilet bowl or whether you're running a Terminator, this is a pro charger kit, okay? So you just tell them, or just tell them, hey, I'm running a mud truck. I talked to Adam, and they'll set you up. There's obviously an upgrade. I mean, you're probably gonna drop another $300 to $500 total by the time you're done, but this whole kit, to do this right, with a surge tank and everything, you're talking $5,000. You know, everybody thinks it's cheap money. It is and it isn't. You know, $5,000 is a lot of money, but when this thing is on, it's on. Another thing is, you wanna do like a leak down tester with this stuff, and you want this thing at like 27 to 30%, because what happens is, I want to grab a 3/16 Allen wrench and a pick. We'll go over this real quick. What happens is so basically your fuel belt runs off the crank, and if the fuel belt stays on long enough, it gets fuel. So anyway, it goes. So you want filters all through this. A filter going to here, filter going to here. Comes into here. Okay. This is your feed. This is your return. A lot of guys will run this return back to the tank. Depending on how far back the tank is, you may not get any pressure going back. So I run a surge tank right in the front of the motor. Mine is set up just like a drag car, just like the way that it's supposed to be. So what you have behind here is this. Oh, we're gonna have to change this too. You'll actually like this. Yeah, because I got it hogged out for the gas. So this is, now I just put this to gas, so don't give me any shit. So you got your spring, and then you got a straighter one. Then in here, I got it, Hubs, I think. Come on, you fucker. And here's a pill. So, don't mind this pill. This one we drilled out here at the shop because I ended up putting it back on gas. And the reason that hole is so humongous is because here's the way this works. What this pill does is it sets in here sideways. This is your return. So whenever you're adjusting the pill, the return controls how much fuel the motor's getting. So you have to allow so much fuel to go back past the motor, because what'll happen is it'll just keep flooding the motor. That's not good with this. Alcohol will seep past the rings down into the oil pan and do damage. The way that these These, I'm just gonna speak for mud truck stuff. They're not really meant for like super duper street drivability. I'm sure someone will prove me wrong and that's fine. But these things are really meant to be wide open. You know, they are better half to wide open. At idle's where it gets tricky. You've got an on-off valve right here, that's full throttle, that's not. So a lot of times what I'll do is, I think with the other motor we ran a 80 something pill up to like a 100 depending on whatever the temperature was. Like I said, we just left this in here now because it's on gas. So what I'll do when I go to start this thing, usually you're in the truck, you got a T-valve, I crack it to about right there, I give it a shot of gas, wing it over, fire it up, boom. Once it warms up, it can stay right there, that's fine. The one thing that you have to remember is before you're ready to get on it, you gotta open that thing up because you'll lean it out this way, it'll pop, fart, bang, boom. Then usually when you go to shut it off, you just pull this back, it'll rev up a little bit, run itself out of fuel, shut the truck off, and then just, once the motor's warm, you don't need gas anymore. Come back to right there. Some guys start it wide open. I don't because it's literally pumping. So like you'll see fuel coming out your headers and stuff if you over fuel it. But once it's warmed up, these things usually start very, very easily. So that's the biggest thing, is have a good enough feed, have a good return, a close return. You know, my surge tank is 1.5 gallons. And it sets right in the front of the motor and it sets right over top of my pump. And then I've got an electric pump that feeds that so that it's always straight over top. Because same thing again with the bad wrap truck that I had, the fuel tank was in the back. I never ran a surge tank. So when I would step on it, it would literally pull fuel away from the motor. So the motor would kind of starve a little bit. So I switched some stuff around there before I had sold it, made it kind of right. And then with the Fuck You truck, I kind of built everything right from the beginning, but I still had some issues because I just still wasn't fully full of knowledge on this stuff. And then when I called them, I said, well, obviously this stuff is built for drag cars, so send me every single thing that a drag car has and I'll figure it out. And then I did. And then, like I said, as we got closer, we figured out this issue, everything else and stuff, and that's it. As far as somebody had asked about alcohol, what you do like when you're not running the truck, I usually run the truck at least twice a month, so I always just leave alcohol in it. For the winter time, obviously, if I knew it was gonna set, like I said, I ran some gas through the system, but alcohol is 2 to 1. So for every gallon of gas, it's gonna burn 2 gallons of alcohol. So that's why that hole in that thing is so big. So the fuel was just returning, and it was still flooding the motor out. So they say that if the motor's gonna set for any length of time, you know, you can shoot some PB blaster down in here, run some gas through the lines. The biggest thing is too, is like you always wanna have a shut off on your fuel tank and stuff so that when you do have to, because you know, you wanna check your filters often. So we put a shut off right out of the fuel cell just before a filter so that you can shut the fuel off and change the filter, because it just, if you don't, then you got fuel everywhere. And we can show you that too.
So where's the motors going to?
This is going to Boyd's Motor Works up in Gloversville. He's done all my work for the last couple of years. And what's hard for a guy like him, it's the same thing with my trainee guy, Todd. I've wrecked a lot of shit over the last couple of years. So Boyd was pretty cool, you know. Todd even, you know, sorry for the plug, Todd. But they were like, man, you gotta stop, you know, throwing our name out there. But no, what I do when I go places is this. I'm like, hey, here's what I need, here's what I'm gonna run. I'm gonna hold this bitch to the floor, and that's just what I'm gonna do. I don't need X amount of power, but here's what we're going for. So we get there, turn it back a little bit, and then just hope for the best. And when shit breaks, it breaks. Most of the, you know, pretty much every time either a motor has had an issue or a transmission has had an issue, I gotta say, it really hasn't been their fault. You know, it's either been listening to idiots on the internet or somebody else that I'm talking to. I got one really good friend out of Florida who's helped me quite a bit with the alcohol injection stuff, and now I try to help other guys because this shit gets expensive, and if something's not right, it goes bad fast, you know? And nobody else knows because they run their stuff maybe like once a year, that they get their truck ready for one event all year long, where we're out there running 15, 20 times a year. So something can be off for a day and you'll still be all right, but when it's off a whole season, you know, like I said, when we just dynoed the motor that was built for this truck, it made 1050 horse and about 1,000 foot-pounds of torque. That's a monster. So I said, hey, you know, just for shits and giggles, let me tune it the way I had it all year. He's like, okay. You know, I did that, and 800 and something horsepower. We got 200 and some horsepower out of tuning the damn thing. I was like, well, I'm an idiot. So now I've learned to not listen to anybody. You know what I mean? It's like I've done it long enough. The motor guy's starting to feel really comfortable with me and this alcohol setup. And you know, like now when we dyno it, you know, he's always done it, but now we're to the level where you almost need like an air-fuel ratio gauge, all that stuff to tell you what exactly is going on in there, you know, because you can't tell. You know, it's like sometimes with alcohol, I've learned, you'll see a mist shooting out the header. You don't know if that's water coming off the tire. You don't know if that's excessive fuel. You know, I changed the oil. We're changing this oil. The other oil pan I got's a 13-quart pan, so I was changing it like every 2 mud bogs. But by 2 mud bogs, that's 100 gallons of fuel, because that's about a 50-gallon tank. So, and I'll run a tank out every single place I go. So that's 100 gallons to 13 quarts. You know, and even then it probably didn't need it, but you change it anyway. So.
Well, let's get it loaded up and head out.
Yeah.